The next 3 days are going to crack something open in your life. And I need you to hear that clearly before we go any further. Because this is not a maybe, this is not a someday, this isn't one of those manifest it and see what happens type messages. This is a perfect storm. And it's already forming, it's already moving toward you. And it's coming to deliver exactly what you've been quietly asking for. The thing you stopped saying out loud because saying it out loud felt too risky. The universe already decided this. Not you, not your overthinking, not your 5-year plan, not the version of you that's been talking yourself out of hope every single morning for longer than you'd like to admit. That was decided somewhere else, somewhere bigger than your to-do list. And the next 72 hours are simply the part where it becomes invisible to you. So do not miss this. I mean that. Do not let this be the one you scroll past and forget about by tomorrow afternoon, because what's coming for you right now doesn't come around twice in the same shape. Okay, let's slow down for a second, because I know how that sounds, and I want you to actually feel it instead of just hearing it as another headline. Think about how storms actually work in real life. They don't show up out of nowhere. For days, sometimes longer, you've got warm air pulling in one place and cooler air pushing in from somewhere else. And neither one of them is doing anything wrong. They are just being exactly what they are until eventually they meet. And when they meet, something has to give. That's not chaos for the sake of chaos. That's pressure finding release. That's two different energies that were never going to coexist quietly forever, finally colliding so that something new can exist on the other side of them. That is exactly what's happening in your life this week. Except instead of warm air and cold air, it's everything you have been holding together quietly, meeting everything you've been hoping for, and not letting yourself say out loud. And when those two things meet, in the next 3 days, it is going to look and feel like more is happening than usual. People reaching out, old situations resurfacing, a decision forcing itself into the open, a conversation you have been avoiding, suddenly unavoidable. Do not panic when you see it building. That's the signal, not the problem. Here's the part nobody tells you about wanting something. You think wanting it loudly is what gets it to you. So you try that for a while, you put it out there, you talk about it, you chase it, and when it doesn't show up on your timeline, you quietly do the opposite. You shrink the want down until it's small enough to not hurt when it doesn't happen. You stop telling people what you actually want for your life because every time you said it before, something didn't line up. And the disappointment cost more than the silence does. So you have gotten really good at wanting less. Not because you deserve less. Not because less is easier. It's not easier. It's harder to walk around with a hunger you've trained yourself to pretend you don't have. You wake up some mornings and you feel it right there in your chest. Before your mind even fully turns on, that pull towards something more, something realer, something, some version of your life that actually fits who you are, who you have become. And then, by the time you are brushing your teeth, you have already shut the door on it. You have convinced yourself, again, that you never really wanted it that badly anyway. That's the lie you tell so the wanting doesn't hurt. And I need you to know, before we go any further, that I see that. That's not weakness. That's not you being dramatic or ungrateful for what you already have. That's you protecting yourself from a disappointment you have felt one too many times. But here's the thing about a storm that's already been decided. It doesn't care. It doesn't care how quiet you've gotten about what you want. It's coming anyway. Maybe right now it's the middle of the night and you're lying there and for a few seconds right before your brain catches up and starts running through tomorrow's responsibilities, you feel something underneath all of it. An appetite. Yeah, an appetite for your own life. A version of you that hasn't been talked out of anything yet. And then you remember where you are, what you've settled for, what you've decided is realistic. And something closes quietly inside you like a door shutting in a room and you don't go into anymore. You do not tell anyone this part. You miss that hunger version of yourself. Not because wanting things is fun, but because that version of you used to move through the world without calculating the cost of everything first. That version of you would speak up in the meeting, would send the message, would book the flight without 3 weeks of talking yourself out of it first. You still catch glimpses of that person sometimes. In the shower, alone in the car with the radio off, in that half second when someone says something and you see the funnier, sharper, truer thing you could say, and you let it pass because making space for someone else feels safer than taking up your own. And somewhere in all of that quiet self-editing, you became a little invisible to yourself. Yeah, not all at once. Slowly. So slowly, you are not even sure when it started. So here is what's actually happening this week. And I really want you to picture it with me instead of just listen to this. Picture the exact moment a storm breaks. You know that pressure in the air right before it does, that heaviness, that stillness where even the birds go quiet because they can feel it coming before you can hear it. That's where a lot of you have been living for the last few weeks without even realizing it's a storm building and not just a bad mood or a slow season. You have felt restless without a reason you could name. You felt like something was about to happen, but you couldn't say what. You have had this low hum of anticipation underneath ordinary days, and you brushed it off as anxiety or overthinking, but it wasn't that. It was your own awareness picking up on something real before the rest of you caught up. That pressure has been building because two things in your life that were never going to stay separate forever are about to meet. On one side, everything you have been holding together quietly, all that effort, all that patience, all that doing the right thing and waiting. On the other side, the thing you actually want, finally getting close enough to be real. And when those two things finally touch, in the next 3 days, it's going to feel like a lot all at once. That's not a warning, that's the description of a door opening. I want to give you something to hold on to here. A way of picturing this so it doesn't just stay an abstract idea or you nodding along to and forget by tomorrow. Think about you want. Everything you've quieted down inside yourself as light. Not a metaphor for being positive or sparkly. I mean actual light. The kind that lets you see what's in a room, including yourself. When you keep that light turned all the way down, because it's safer that way, because nobody around you ever asked you to be quite this bright. You don't just become harder for other people to see. You become harder for yourself to see. You start living in your own dim room, bumping into the same furniture, not because the furniture moved, but because you cannot see it clearly anymore. That's what happens when you spend years training yourself to want less, expect less, ask for less. The world doesn't notice you dimming down nearly as much as you think it does, because most people are managing their own dimmed down light at the same time. But you notice. Some part of you always notices. Here's the part where I need to be really direct with you, because this matters more than the storm talk, more than the timing, more than any of it. You didn't dim that light because something is wrong with you. You did it because at some point, being fully visible, fully wanting, fully yourself, cost you something. Maybe somebody made it clear in words or just how they treated you. Wanting too much or being too much or needing too much was inconvenient for them. And you, being smart, being a person who learns fast, made a quiet deal with yourself. You'd take up less room so things would stay calm. You'd want smaller things so the disappointment would be smaller too. That deal made sense at the time. It might have even kept you safe. But here's what nobody told you when you made that deal. It doesn't expire on its own. You have to be the one who ends it. And the storm building over the next 3 days, is the exact kind of pressure that tends to force that ending, whether you initiate it or not. Think about every place in your life right now where you have been the one absorbing things so somebody else didn't have to. The meeting where you saw the problem clearly, knew exactly what needed to be said, and stayed quiet because speaking up meant being looked at. And being looked at has felt dangerous for longer than you'd like to admit. The relationship where something unfair happened and you let it slide because naming it out loud felt like more conflict than you had the energy for, so you absorbed it instead and made it okay. You became the person who keeps the peace by quietly disappearing a little more each time. The family gathering. The family gathering, where someone mentioned something you accomplished and you immediately made it smaller, deflected it, turned it into a joke, because being celebrated felt more exposed than being overlooked. None of that happened because you are weak. No. It happened because somewhere along the way you learned that being fully seen came with a price. And you decided the price wasn't worth it. That was a reasonable decision back then. It's not a reasonable decision now. It is not. And the storm doesn't know the difference between then and now. It's just going to show up and ask you to choose right there in the moment whether you are going to keep paying that old price or whether you are finally going to let yourself be visible. I want you to sit with how exhausting that quiet erasure actually is. Because most of you have gotten so good at it that you don't even register it as exhausting anymore. You just call it being easygoing, being low maintenance, being the dependable one. And ask yourself honestly, when was the last time someone rearranged their plans for you, the way you constantly rearrange yours for everyone else? When? When was the last time you said what you actually wanted to say in a conversation instead of agreeing to whatever was easiest for the room? You've trained the people around you, without meaning to, that your needs are negotiable and everyone else's are not. And the cost of that is not just tiredness. No, it's that somewhere along the way you lost track of what you actually want underneath all the obligations you've taken on. You wake up most days running through a list of things you are supposed to do, things you agreed to, things other people are counting on you for. And somewhere in there, the question of what you actually want for your own life got quieter and quieter until it's almost a whisper. That whisper hasn't gone away. It's just been waiting for conditions to change enough that it's worth speaking up again. Those conditions are changing right now. This is where the next 3 days really matter. Because pressure like this doesn't build forever without releasing. You can feel it if you pay attention, can't you? Things picking up speed that have been stagnant for months. A message landing out of nowhere. A door that's been shut for so long suddenly cracking open an inch. A decision you've been avoiding suddenly demanding an answer because circumstances around it shifted without your permission. That's not random bad luck or random good luck. That's the storm arriving. The two fronts finally meeting, and I promise you, even though it might look like messy or on the surface for a moment, underneath the mess is exactly the clearing you've been waiting for or want. Storms don't exist to destroy you, no. They exist to clear out what's been stagnant so something new has room to exit. The discomfort of the next few days, if you feel any, is not a sign that things are going wrong. It's the exact texture of things finally moving. I keep coming back to that image of the light because I think it explains something important about why this is happening now, specifically in this exact window, and not some vague someday in the future. A light that's been dimmed for a long time doesn't just flicker back on gently when conditions are right. It tends to come back fast, almost like the dimmer switch breaks loose all at once, instead of turning smoothly. That's what the next 3 days are going to feel like for a lot of you. Not a slow, comfortable easing back into wanting things. A sudden, almost starting rush of clarity about what you actually want, what you've actually been missing, what you're actually settling for. You might feel emotional out of nowhere. You might feel angry about something you thought you'd made peace with. You might feel a pull toward a person, a place, an opportunity, a version of your own life that you had quietly written off as unrealistic. That's not random. That's not random emotional noise. That's the light coming back up to full brightness after a long time at half power. And it's going to be a little disorienting at first. The same way your eyes need a second to adjust when a room goes from dim to bright. Let yourself have that adjustment period instead of immediately trying to dim it back down because it feels like too much, too fast. I also want to talk about something that's been quietly weighing on a lot of you because I feel it the second I sat down to put this together. And it kept coming back no matter how many times I tried to move past it. There is a connection, a person, maybe a situation evolving somewhere, someone that has been on your mind in a way that doesn't make complete sense to you. Maybe it's someone you used to know who you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe it's someone you are close to right now, but there is a gap between you that neither of you talks about. Whatever it is, there is a real difference between the two of you in how you see things, in what you've been through, in the pace at which you each move through life. And that difference has caused some genuine friction or confusion in the past. I'm not telling you this connection is simple or easy, because it isn't. There's been some real difficulty there, maybe even some pain that changed how you see things now. But that difficulty didn't something important. It shifted your perspective in a way that's actually serving you now, even if it didn't feel like a gift while it was happening. If this storm steers that connection back up over the next few days, whether through an actual conversation or just memories resurfacing uninvited, don't treat it as a step backward. Treat it as material. A contrast that relationship created in you is part of what's making you ready for what's coming. Now, here is something I want you to take seriously, because it's easy to romanticize a storm and forget that storms also ask something of you. You don't have to do this part alone. I know some of you are sitting there right now dealing with something heavy, something you haven't told to people, the people around you, the full truth about. Because you've convinced yourself it's easier to carry it by yourself than to risk someone not showing up the way you need them to. I want to gently push back on that. Today I'm a real gently person. There are people in your corner right now. Some of them you already know, some of them you haven't met yet, who are ready to be useful to you the second you let them in. The instinct to white-knuckle this entire storm solo isn't strength, even though it feels that way. It's actually one of the last pieces of that old protective pattern. The one that taught you needing people was risky, so better to need no one. Let that go this week. Tell someone what's actually going on. Ask for the help. Let someone show up for you the way you've shown up for everyone else for years. That single act of letting support in is part of what turns this storm from something that just happens to you into something you actually work with, something you direct, something you get to shape instead of just survive. Because here is the truth about a storm like this. You do not have to control the weather to have a say in what happens during it. You cannot stop the wind from picking up or the pressure from building. That part's already decided. That part is out of your hands, and honestly, it always was. But you absolutely have a say in how you move through it. You can either brace for it like it's something happening to you, white-knuckling through the next 3 days, waiting for it to be over, so you can go back to how things were. Or you can walk straight into it the way you'd walk towards something you actually want to understand up close. I want you to picture yourself doing that second thing. Not bracing, not hiding indoors, waiting for the all clear. Actually stepping out into it, curious, a little electrified, ready to see what all this charged up energy is actually carrying toward you. Because that's what's different about this particular storm. It's not coming to take something from you. It's coming to deliver. The whole point of the pressure building right now is that it's carrying something toward you that you have wanted for a long time. And the storm is simply the form that delivery is taking. You do not get the calm without going through the part where the air actually moves. Let yourself feel for just a second what it would be like on the other side of this. Picture 3 days from now, when the pressure that's been building finally breaks and settles. Picture waking up lighter than you have in a long time, like something that's been sitting on your chest for months has finally been lifted off. Picture having clarity about a decision that's been foggy for weeks, not because you forced an answer, but because the fog itself cleared and the answer was just sitting there the whole time, waiting for you to be able to see it. Picture a conversation that needed to happen finally happening. And instead of the disaster you'd build it up to be in your head, it actually brings relief. The kind where you walk away thinking, why did I wait so long to say that? Picture something you've wanted quietly for a long time. Something you stopped letting yourself talk about because it felt embarrassing to still want it after all this time. Suddenly looking possible again, not in a distant, theoretical way, but in a real, tangible, this could actually happen way. That's not me being dramatic for the sake of a good video. That's what tends to happen on the other side of a real pressure release, when everything that's been building finally has somewhere to go. I also want to be honest with you, actually always, about something because I think it matters more than the exciting parts. Some of what surfaces in the next 3 days might not feel exciting in the moment. It might feel uncomfortable. It might bring up something you'd rather not look at directly. An old wound, a pattern you've been avoiding naming, a truth about a situation you've been telling yourself, a softer version of for a while now. If that happens, I want you to resist the urge to slam the door shut on it and go back to pretending you didn't see it. That discomfort is doing something useful, even when it doesn't feel useful. It's clearing space. Think about how a real storm leaves the air smelling different afterward. Cleaner, lighter, like something got washed out that needed to go. That's what emotional discomfort during a pressure release actually does too. If you let it run its course instead of shutting it down the second it gets uncomfortable. You don't have to enjoy every second of the next 3 days for them to be working in your favor. You just have to stay present for them instead of numbing out or distracting yourself until it passes. There is something else I keep getting pulled back to. And it's this idea of something locked finally coming open, not metaphorically vague, but specifically something you've been carrying around closed for a long time, something you stopped checking because you assumed it was just going to stay shut. Maybe that's an idea you shelved because the timing never felt right. Maybe it's a version of a relationship you assumed had run its course and could never look different than it currently does. Maybe it's a part of you, or of your own personality, your own voice, your own way of moving through the world, like that you packed away because it didn't feed the version of you that felt safest to be. Whatever it is for you specifically, I'm telling you, this storm is the thing that finally gets the luck to give. That luck to give. Not because you're going to force it open through sheer willpower, but because the pressure building around it is going to be enough on its own to shake something loose that's been stuck for a long time. When it opens, and it will, do not immediately try to assess whether what's inside is safe or sensible or realistic. Just let yourself see it first. You can sort of the logistic later. Right now, just let yourself look. I want to come back to where we started because I think it matters that we land here together instead of me just leaving you with a bunch of separate images. The next 3 days are not a test you have to pass. They are not a deadline you need to scramble to meet. They are a delivery window. And what's being delivered is something you've already wanted for a long time. Something that's already been decided somewhere bigger than your daily worrying, your second guessing, your habit of wanting less, so the disappointment stings less. You didn't have to manifest this with the perfect mindset. You didn't have to earn it through some flawless display of positivity. It's coming because it was already coming. And the storm is simply how it's arriving, loud and a little disruptive. The way most genuinely good things tend to arrive when they have been building up pressure for a while because they finally break through. So here is what I'd ask of you for these next 3 days, not as a rule, not as a step you have to follow perfectly, just as something to carry with you. Stop shrinking the want. Whatever it is, you've quietly stopped letting yourself hope for. Let yourself hope for it again, out loud if you can manage it, to someone you trust, or at minimum out loud to yourself in the privacy of your own head. Let people see more of you than you've been letting them see lately. Even if it feels exposed, even if some old part of you flinches at the idea of being that visible. Lean on someone instead of carrying the heavy things by yourself, because you have support closer than you think. And using it doesn't make you any less capable. It makes you smarter about how you move through a moment like this. And when the pressure builds, when things start happening faster than you expected, when an old situation resurfaces or a new opportunity shows up out of nowhere, or a conversation finally has to happen, do not brace against it like it's an attack. Walk toward it like it's exactly what you asked for. Even back when you stopped admitting you were asking. Because that's really what this storm is. It's not punishment and it's not random chaos thrown at you to test your patience. It's the universe. It's the universe, God, behind timing that's bigger than any one person's control. Finally, lining things up the way they were always going to line up once enough pressure built on both sides. You didn't cause this by thinking the right thoughts, and you can't stop it by thinking the wrong ones. It was already decided. All that's left now is for you to be present for it instead of hiding from it, to let the light come back up instead of dimming it down out of old habit, to ask for help instead of white-knuckling it alone, and to actually receive what's coming instead of deflecting it the second it arrives, the way you've trained yourself to deflect good things for years. 3 days. That's the window. Pay attention to what shows up, even the parts that look inconvenient or messy at first glance, because more often than not, the bring you've been waiting for doesn't arrive looking exactly like you pictured it. It arrives looking like a storm, loud and a little disruptive and impossible to ignore. And only afterward, once the air clears, do you look back and realize that was it. That was the delivery. That was the thing you'd been waiting for the whole time, just wearing a different shape than you'd expected. Do not miss it by being too busy bracing for impact to notice it's actually bringing you exactly what you wanted. The universe already decided. All you have to do now is show up for it.